to a session on network security at TCS and a former Gold Microsoft Learn student in West. So I'm currently working in security operations, which involves logging and monitoring, which we will talk about on stop. So in this session, we will first start with the foundation on network security. Then we will continue with network security technologies and protocols. These technologies and protocols will also be talked about in introduction to network security as well, which then will be detailed a bit here as well. Then we will continue with finally with network security architectures, what sort of security architectures we have in different organizations, and then we will end with best security practices that we should apply when it comes to network security. Let's first lay the foundation for network security by starting with what network security really is. Here we will understand what network security is, how network security is useful when it comes to an organization, and the current threat actors, just like I told. So what really is network security? Network security is the protection of confidentiality, integrity, and availability of network infrastructure and data. It controls access by managing who can view or use network resources, by managing the authentication of users with the use of passwords or multi-factor authentication or biometrics, and what resources can be used by an authenticated user with the use of role-based access control. It prevents data loss by encrypting the data that is in rest and with the use of DLP tools, that is data loss prevention. It prevents any unauthorized data exfiltration. Then network security also focuses on safeguarding communication, that is data in transit, that is data in motion. So it focuses on securing the data that is being exchanged between a client and a server or between the systems. Here we focus mainly on security technologies and protocols that we are going to talk about in a bit, such as VPNs, SSL or TLS, and HTTPS, etc. It also prevents any sort of unauthorized intrusion that will be tried against network with the use of a category of tools that we call as IDS or IPS, that is intrusion detection or intrusion prevention system. It maintains network security by ensuring the consistency of data and preventing against any compromisation of network by use of integrity checks such as checksums, cryptographic hashing, etc. It also supports business continuity.
Your screen is only the first slide is still visible if
Is
you
that
have changed it.
okay? Let me share my screen again. Sorry for that. Now is the slide visible?
Yes, sir. It's a blank slide, but no
Yeah,
text.
yeah. So that's it.
All right. Okay.
And let me just share the screen so we will not have any issue. So we were on what network security. Is this slide visible? What is network security?
Yes, sir, it's visible.
Yeah. So we talked about what network security, which is the protection of network infrastructure and data. right? And let me repeat the points. So network security is the protection of confidentiality, integrity, and availability of network infrastructure and data. It helps in controlling access by managing who can view the resources or use the resources, and when a user is authenticated, which user can actually use that resource or what resource that particular authenticated user can use. Because if you get an access to a building, it doesn't mean that you have access to every room in that building, right? Getting authentication and authorized are two different concepts. Preventing data loss by the use of encryption, safeguarding communication by use of protocols and technologies like SSL, TLS, HTTPS, etc. It also prevents against any unauthorized intrusion attacks with the use of a category of tools such as IDS, IPS, which is called as intrusion detection or intrusion prevention system. It maintains network integrity by preventing any compromisation of network by use of integrity checks like checksums, cryptographic hashing, and etc. It also supports business continuity plan with the utilization of the disaster recovery plan and use of redundant systems, that is backup system. If one system stops working, we have backup systems to take over. Now let's understand the current threat landscape to understand how network security is important in today's interconnected world. We will talk about certain threats which are very much relevant in today's world and how network security can play a role. So malware is a very common threat we all know about, which may include viruses, bombs, ransomware, or Trojan horses, thing like that. So malware is a malicious software that may disrupt, damage the system in a network. Phishing may include email attacks or social engineering attacks, which are deceptive attacks to deceive people. Basically, it focuses on the weakest point of security, that is people. However good your security tools or your security policies are, if the people in an organization are not aware about security, that is always the weakest point in an organization. And these are deceptive tactics to deceive people into relieving sensitive information such as login credentials or credit card information or any other financial data. Distributed denial of service or DDoS attacks focus on overwhelming systems by overwhelming a system by giving too many unnecessary traffic so that legit traffic is not able to be handled by the system because that system has been overwhelmed, or should I say has been saturated. Insider threats focus on internal actors, which may be employees or contractors, which may intentionally or unintentionally compromise a system. Intentionally by disgruntled employees or unintentionally by uninformed employees, which tells us how security awareness is important in an organization. Advanced persistent threats or APTs are sophisticated long-term attacks which focus on, which aim to gather sensitive information or gain access to a network. These are generally used by governments against another government. For example, if I give you some example, then there was a Pegasus software from Israel which was being used to snoop on different government employees around the world. Then there was a Stuxnet virus attack against Iranian nuclear program, which was, I guess, done by United States, which was again an advanced persistent threat. Zero-day exploits or vulnerabilities employed by malicious actors. These vulnerabilities are those which have not yet been discovered. It's called day one. The 0 day changes to day one as soon as that vulnerability is discovered and patches start being released. Supply chain attacks are attacks through third party actors. That is refers to uh, compromising an organization with the use of software that organization uses provided by a third party organization. If I give you an example, the CrowdStrike, the recent downtime of CrowdStrike, which affected Microsoft. So this that attack was not against directly against Microsoft, but instead CrowdStrike. But since Microsoft was using a software from third-party software, or being a client to CrowdStrike, CrowdStrike software being affected also affected Microsoft. Now let's talk about core principles of network security. These core principles will focus on CIA tried, something we just mentioned, and AAA concept. AAA concept. AAA refers to authentication, authorization, and accounting. So authentication is a way of authenticating a user, that is verifying the identity of a user with the use of passwords, OTPs, or multi-factor authentication, or biometrics, etc. While authorization is manages the access control list for an authenticated user. You have got access to the building, but now you need to be authorized to use a particular room in the building. For example, you want to get access to a server room in a building that you've got access. You have been authenticated to enter the building, but you need to be authorized to access the server room in that building. So that focuses on authorization. Authorization, that means the authorization says is that what resources a particular authenticated user can use. Accounting focuses on monitoring and logging, which means that it tracks user activity and who accesses the network resources. So it basically focuses on what a particular user is doing and what resources that particular user is accessing, or what particular resource is or what if we focus on the resource part, then what user or which users are accessing that particular resource. So it goes both ways. We either focus on what resources are being used by the user, or which user is accessing that particular resource. So it monitors continuously the activities of the user. So when we come to CIA triad, CIA refers to confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Confidentiality refers to safeguarding the data in an organization or safeguarding the access to a network itself. To protect unauthorized access to data, to sensitive data in particular. For example, login credentials, financial data such as credit card information. These are confidential and sensitive data and should be protected. This may be done with the use of encryption or DLP tools such as data loss. Then integrity focuses on it prevents unauthorized, you know, compromise of data, such as if we say like you may send me a file, so that file may be compromised in between, and the file you receive is not actually the file that I sent you. So in that case, that file has been compromised. So to prevent this from happening, we utilize the concept of checksums or cryptographic hashing, etc. If that file is compromised, the hash associated with that file will also be changed. So if those two hashes, the hash that is created on the source side and the hash that is created on the destination side, if these two hashes don't match, that means that the file has been changed. If those two hashes match, that means there has been no change to the file, and the file that was on the source is the same as the file in the destination. So that is the integrity of the file. If the integrity of the file is compromised, the hash will also change, and we will know that the file has been compromised or has been changed in between. Availability refers to reliable access to resources. You have been authorized to access a resource, but you also want that resource should also be available to you all the time, especially when you need it. If that resource is not available when you need it, then authentication and authorization is of no use. if you are still not able to use it because of some downtime. So availability focuses on preventing downtime by maybe the use of redundant systems, which are basically backup systems, so that if one system stops working, we have other systems to take over, so that at least our network will keep going. Now let's continue with network security protocols and technologies. We will talk about some protocols and technologies here, which I mentioned during the introduction to network security, such as SSL, TLS, HTTPS, or VPNs, etc. So let's first talk about network security protocols. So before I get into what into specifically into security protocols, what a protocol is. So protocols are a way to access a service. So these protocols are associated with a port. A port number specifies where the protocol is associated so that you are able to go and access that particular service. Suppose a particular service is associated with port number 21, then another service is associated with port number 22. So you know that particular service 21 refers to FTP, that is file transfer protocol. You can access file transfer protocol to the port number 21. You can access SSH to port number 22. So these protocols are nothing but services. So the first security protocol we talk about here is SSL or TLS, that is Secure Sockets Layer, the Transport Layer Protocol, Transport Layer Security, which are transport layer protocols. These focus on uh, securing data that is in transit, or the data that is being exchanged between a client and a server, specifically web communications. It is used with HTTPS to secure web communications. IPsec or IPsec, that is Internet Protocol Security, secures data which is transferred over Internet Protocol, that is IP. This is used when it comes to use of VPNs. When you use VPN, this is the technology that protects your data. VPNs are virtual private networks, if you remember that. SSH is secure shell. By the name of it itself, you can understand that it provides a secure remote access to to a network, or secure remote access or secure management of devices on a network. SSH focuses on, or it encrypts command line access to network rather than a graphical user interface. We have command line access to a network or to a device on the network, and it encrypts the commands or the data being exchanged between the client and the server. HTTPS is the secure version of HTTP, that is hypertext protocol, which combines itself with SSL or TLS to become HTTPS and provide us security over web communication. LDAP, that is lightweight directory access protocol, is a centralized way of providing us authentication services over a distributed directory service such as Microsoft Azure Directory, which may be in the form of Azure Directory or Windows Active Directory or Azure Active Directory. Active Directory is like a phone book, which is a centralized way of managing all the devices on the net. Kerberos is an network authentication protocol, which uses secret key concept to provide secure access to network. It only provides compliant devices access to that network. A device that is compliant will only be allowed access to the network. A device which is not compliant, which may not have been authenticated or authorized to use that network, will be prevented by Kerberos to get access to the network. Continuing with network security protocols and technologies, we now talk about network security technologies. Technologies are the tools uh, that we use to secure our network. So firewall, everyone knows about it. Firewalls and antivirus and anti-malware. Firewall is a device that we generally utilize to secure incoming and outgoing traffic. Like it decides which incoming and outgoing traffic should be allowed in a network through the use of firewall rules. Firewall may be in the form of hardware, or software, or hybrid, that is in the form of both hardware and software. An intrusion detection or prevention system. I have mentioned IDS and IPS several times, right? So let's understand what IDS and IPS actually is. So an intrusion detection system detects any suspicious activity that may happen on the network, and it alerts the admins that are sitting in the office, right? But IPS not only detects, but it also takes action against those detected alerts. So the difference between IDS and IPS is only about taking and not taking action. IDS only detects and alerts us, but it doesn't take any action against those alerts that are generated. IPS not only detects those alerts, but it also takes action against them. A human may still have to be involved to see if that action taken was correct or not, or if something that may have been led by IPS, because we cannot just simply rely on a tool. A human still has to be involved there, right? But it definitely helps us in securing a network, if not completely secures it. A security information and event management or SIEM tool focuses on collecting, analyzing, and correlating security data that's coming from all over the network. So basically, it collects logs created by different tools, right? That tool may also include IPS or IDS. It collects all the logs or any data that is being generated by those tools and show us on a single dashboard so that we can just go and use a SIEM tool and use a dashboard to monitor our network just on a single screen. Otherwise, we may need to go and check different tools again and again, which if we are checking on a single tool, say, the logs created on other tools may be left behind, right? So something may get left behind. So we need all those tools, logs generated from all those tools to be on a single place. That is where SIEM tools come into play. Then, as we already know about antivirus and anti-malware, focus on protecting against malicious software that may disrupt our systems or damage our systems. These focus on endpoint security. Endpoints refer to our mobile devices, our laptops, PCs. Right, these are endpoints. Antivirus and anti-malware comes when we talk about endpoint security. A network access control (NAC) focuses on securing or managing the devices that access the network. As we can tell from its name itself, network access control basically controls which device can access and cannot access the network. So it basically implements security policies on the devices that are accessing the network to control the network access or access to the network. Multi-factor authentication, more of a concept or a technology which focuses on multiple factors of authentication and not just relying on passwords. So besides passwords, we may use other types of authentication such as OTPs, that is one-time passwords, or the use of pins or keys. So continuing with the section, now let's talk about some network security architectures that may be utilized by an organization. Now it depends on the organization to choose which network security architecture is best for them. What I can do is I can only explain you which different network security architectures to you, and then it comes to you to decide which network security architecture should be used for your organization, depending on the structure of the organization. So first, let's talk about core security architectures. Focusing on core security architectures, we focus on three, that is defense in depth, zero trust architecture, and network segmentation. Defense in depth focuses on layered security. Basically, you have different layers of security rather than a single layer of security. Even if one layer of security is breached, we still have other layers of security to protect us, and this provides us time to prevent that attack from going further. Because if one layer of security is breached, it may create alerts, Creating the alerts, we may know that an attack has been implemented against a network. We know there are other layers as well still to be breached, and we have time before that malicious actor actually gets access to the network. So before that happens, we are able to secure a network because that malicious actor will not be able to directly access the network because we have different layers of security. So they will have to cross over different layers, which also gives us time to secure a network. If we only had one layer of security, just bypassing that layer of security would have given that malicious actor access to the network, and we wouldn't even have time to think about what we should do to prevent that network because that uh, attack has actually already happened. We didn't even have time in between. If we have different or several layers of security, we'll at least have time to protect the network. Zero trust architecture focuses on saying that trust no one, whether it's your employees or your users. That is, zero trust architecture says that the attack can happen from outside or inside. Outside, when we refer to outside attacks, we already know attacks like viruses, malware, anything like that may be introduced through outside software. Those are outside or external malicious actors. Internal actors are those which we already talked about. That is internal threats. Or we talked about this. Let me show you again. Insider threats. The fourth point here, insider threats, focuses on internal threat actors. Zero trust architecture focuses that it says that the attack can happen from outside or inside both. So internal actors may include employees or contractors, which may intentionally or unintentionally compromise the network. Network segmentation is also one core security architecture I would prefer should be used in an organization because it segments the network into different subnetworks or segmented networks, I should say. Don't confuse it with subnets. Segmented networks is like if one of the segment of the network is compromised, we still have other segments of the network still safe. If we have if we are using a network as a whole without segmenting into different networks, if that network is compromised, the whole network will be affected. But if we divide our network into different networks, into different smaller networks, then even if an attack happens and a network gets compromised, it will only be a segment of the network rather than the whole network in itself. So the security team in the organization can get time to prevent that attack from going because those security people would have already been alerted. But since our rest of the network is still safe, before anything more happens, the security employees at least will be able to secure the network. Specifically focusing on perimeter security and cloud security. Perimeter security focuses on uh, the layer between external and internal part of the network. Internal network is the network of the organization, while external network may refer to the internet. So perimeter security is at the perimeter of the network. If you think about a building, when we are talking about perimeter security, we are basically focusing the perimeter of the building rather than the building itself. When we talk about the security of the building, then that's internal security. But when we are talking about the perimeter of the building, then we are talking about perimeter security. So at the border of external and internal network, we put some tools like external firewall, right? Or it may include demilitarized zone, which is a buffer zone, which may host services which are to be accessed publicly, but they still need to be secure. So they cannot be exactly outside the network. So instead, we put these services at the perimeter of the network so that if someone wants to access those services, they will not have to come or access the network in itself. They will not have to go inside the building. They will have to just come to the perimeter of the building and access that service. Because we don't want those users to come inside the building. We just want them to get the service and just go out. Cloud security focuses on any service that is hosted on the cloud. Now, examples of cloud include AWS, that is GCP, that is Google Cloud Platform. So it focuses on securing services or any web application or any network that is hosted on the cloud. Uh, so, for example, if we take up Azure, so these cloud services already have a lot of security already implemented by them, right? So instead of our organization implementing security from scratch, cloud services provide a security already built to much extent. It's just it just depends on us to set up those security tools based on the structure of our organization, but those tools have already been set up. So if we take up Azure, for example, it may include tools like Azure Firewall, that is Cloud Firewall, Azure Bastion, which is used to get secure remote access to our machines hosted on the cloud, right? It may be Azure Network Charge, uh, which is about monitoring and logging of the network. So these tools are already built on the cloud. We just need to buy the service and just use it. So finally, we come to talk about best practices that should be implemented when it comes to network security. So when it comes to network security, there are some best practices that should be implemented. It's not just about using the tools and protocols, because we can't just simply rely on tools. A human has still to be involved there. We may be able to automate some of the processes or make a process more effective by the use of these automated tools. But however good a tool is, until a human comes and sets up that tool according to the need of the organization, until the employees in an organization are aware themselves, uh, putting any sort of technology, however good it is not enough. Because an employee in an organization, or we should say a human, is the weakest point in security. So employee training and awareness is very important, because you may have very good tools installed in an organization, but if that employee is not aware about, then it may still lead to an attack have to happen very quickly. I also talked about software engineering, phishing attacks or email attacks, right? If your uh, employees in the organization are not aware, a person may just make a call to that employee and may deceive that employee in revealing the password, right, or any sort of sensitive information from them itself. So that malicious actor doesn't even need any technical knowledge to be able to access the network, because instead of doing that by trying to access the network, they try to gather the information from the employee. If that employee is not aware enough to able to understand that this is something I shouldn't do, this sort of information should never be released to an outside individual, however good tools you have employed or however good security policies you have employed in your organization, this will never be enough. And that's why we say that human is the weakest point. We also should keep our systems updated. Uh, if we don't keep systems updated, that means that our system may be vulnerable. Because if we are using an non-updated version of a software, that means that that software was updated and there were some security patches that would have been done in that security in that updated software. Since the software installed in the organization is not updated yet, that means that it may still have those vulnerabilities that were being patched before. And since those vulnerabilities are already known, those vulnerabilities may be uh, misused by a malicious actor and may let that malicious actor to gain access to the organization. So it's important to keep systems updated. We also need to enforce strong authentication. So strong authentication is not just about how you verify the user that is accessing the network or the part of a network or a system, also about like having good password policy. If your employees are not having good uh, passwords in place, however good, again, however good your tools are, if the password is not strong enough, uh, even a little bit knowledgeable malicious actor may be able to access a network just cracking those passwords. So you need to have strong password policies asking about how those passwords should be created and how they shouldn't be created, so that employees understand that passwords should be strong, but they are also able to create passwords in a way that they are able to remember them as well. We also need to regularly backup data. This also focuses or ensures availability. If data is compromised and we are not able to access that data, or the data is compromised in a way that we are not able to get or recover the data again, we should have backup data to be able to uh, keep up keep the organization going, or should I say, for the business continuity. So regularly backup data can be a part of business continuity plan. To say that if their data is compromised, we still have a backup of the data. Like, but before bringing that backup data into the network should be secured before that, right? If that backup data is brought into the network before securing the network itself, that data may still get compromised again, and they may even be able to get access to the backup data or the backup database as well, and that will also get compromised. Then you will not have any sort of backup with you, and then the business continuity plan will fail. Monitoring of data activity is also very important, because you need to know what sort of activities are happening on the network, who is accessing your network, or what parts or what uh, resources of the network are being accessed by a user. If that user has been authenticated, if someone is trying to access the network, or any suspicious activity that may happen, if any suspicious activity happens, at least the security team will be alerted and they may take actions again. We also need to develop an incident response plan. After having all sort of security policies in place, it may still happen that our organization may get compromised. So we need to have incident response plan. That is to be able to respond to that incident that has happened, so that we are ab- able to cope up from the incident that has happened. Right? Our organization should be ready to be able to cope up if an incident does happen. And that is that what incident response plans focuses on. If we don't have an incident response plan and an incident happens in an organization, then it will it may take much longer time for the organization to recover from the incident, which will impact business continuity. So having an incident response plan is important. Then least privilege model. Least privilege model is a model which focuses on giving minimum access to a user. So the least privilege model focuses on giving only minimum access to a user. That is, what minimum use access to the user, so that they are able to do their work with those minimum accesses. Which means that they shouldn't be given any sort of access that they don't need to do their work, because even a single uh, unwanted access may lead to that user having unnecessary privilege. And as we know, attacks can happen from outside or inside. Giving unnecessary access to even employees cannot be trusted. So if we follow zero trust policy, unnecessary privileges shouldn't be given to users unless required. So thank you very much. Now it's time for Q&A. If you have any questions, please uh, ask and I will try to answer.
I think some people are typing their questions in the chat box, so I think we can wait for them to.
Okay. Okay, so I got a question that can you explain a bit more about the zero trust model? So the zero trust model focuses on saying that we will not trust anyone, whether it's our own employees or the users that are utilizing our resources. That means that it believes that attacks can happen from outside or inside. Even our own employees cannot be trusted. So it focuses that we will verify or authenticate anything before is given, whether it's our user or an employee. Maybe it's the CEO of our organization, but even though that zero trust model says that we will not trust them. If even a CEO is trying to access a part of the network they may not have access to, we will still focus. The zero trust model will focus on authenticating the user account of the CEO and focusing on the authorization that whether the CEO of the organization has the access of the that part of the resource. And if they don't, we will not, as per this zero trust model, we will not trust that user, even if that user is the CEO of the organization. I hope I was able to explain. Okay, there's a question. What is the difference between authentication and authorization? So I will explain you with an easy example. Uh, Say we have a building, and you want to get access to the building, and there's a security guard standing. So that security guard will authenticate you whether you have access to the building or not. If you have an ID card with you, that means you have access to the building because you're authenticated. If you don't have any sort of ID cards, then you will not be given access to that building, right? Now, suppose you have an ID card and you have got access to the building, so you are inside the building, but that doesn't mean that you have access to every part of the building. Suppose if we talk about server room inside that building, so even though you have been authenticated and have been allowed to enter the building, that doesn't mean that you have access to that server room. You may have access to the room that you have been assigned, a room that you work in, right? But that doesn't mean that you also have access to the server room. That means you're authorized. You're authorized to access the work room, but not the server room. So if you do want to access the server room, then authorization will come into play, and we will see whether you are actually authorized to use that server room. So the difference between authentication and authorization is about entering into the network, and authorization is what resources you have access to in the network. Because you can't just simply, I can't just suppose if I am the security guard, I can't just let you simply go inside the building and do anything, right? So you have got access to the building. We need to also focus on what parts of the building you have access. Getting into the building is authentication, and what parts of the building you have access to is authorization. There's another question. Uh, you wanted to ask that many cybersecurity cert exams like CCNA are quite expensive. CCNA certification focuses on network, I should say, rather than network security. So going for CCNA is not compulsory, as in. I also saw a question on CH. CH is one of the certifications that mean that you have to have certifications to get a job in cybersecurity. I already have a job as a SOC analyst at TCS, but I don't have any certifications at hand. Yes, I am pursuing a certification currently. That is a different thing. But getting a job in cybersecurity doesn't mean that you have to have a certification. The thing is that certifications are asked because they want some sort of some sort of document that proves that you have the skills. Now that skill can be proved either through a certification or your experience. If you already have a good experience with cybersecurity, or uh, say there are different fields in cybersecurity, say network security, application security, mobile app security, web app security. cloud security, right? So if you already have experience, then you may still be able to get job. You don't actually need to go for cert exams. Okay, how is network security related to cryptography? Net cryptography is not just related to network security. It's related to web application security. It may come into role in mobile application security. It may come into role in network security. And cryptography focuses on securing the data that is being transferred. So encryption focuses on you know uh, making that uh, data unreadable. So when you transfer data between the networks or within the network itself, you need to secure the network, the data, and the data cannot be transferred just as it is, because which we call as a man in the middle attack. A person may just be able to read that data, and we don't want it. So we need that data to be secure when being in transit. So that will involve encryption. Similarly, to maintain the integrity of the data being transferred, that what data was being transferred is the data being received by the that destination. We need integrity, and for that we will use hashing algorithms that you study in cryptography. So hashing algorithm ensures that the integrity of the data is maintained. If the integrity of the data is compromised, the hash will also change, and we know that the data is being compromised, and we need to take action. What should be the prerequisite for studying network security? Please, if we talk about prerequisites for studying network security, you should you should study Python, specifically focusing on Python scripting. You can also go with Bash scripting. You should have basic knowledge about networking as well. You can't just directly get into network security. You have to have basic knowledge about networking as well. Besides that, uh, these two requirements are generally enough. Studying about Python is not even compulsory. If you are not going into automation part, if you're not going to automate anything, then Python is not necessary. But yes, scripting can be a useful skill for you if you want to make a career. Could you provide any resources for studying or listening about the subject? Okay. If you want any resources, I can let the host know, and I can share the resources with you later as well. You can contact me on LinkedIn. I will share my links here. But if you want to know some of the resources, there are many resources available on YouTube. Then there are several uh, education websites providing education, even free education on cybersecurity. If we talk about YouTube channels, you can access the Cyber Mentor. I will write it in the chat. The Cyber Mentor is a YouTube channel who focuses on providing free education specifically about network security. So you can just go to the YouTube channel, the Cyber Mentor, and study about network security from there. He also teaches you basic Python and networking as well. How is network security connected to cyber security? So network security is a branch of cyber security, right? Cyber security can be security of anything. So when you're focusing on securing the network, it's network security. When you are focusing on securing a web application, then it's web application security. When you're focusing on securing a mobile application, then it's a mobile application security. When you are focusing on securing any services or software on the cloud, then it's cloud security. So it's just a branch of cybersecurity. Does network security mean securing the network devices and the nodes of the network from the attacks? Yes, somewhat it is, but that's not the only thing. We need to secure hardware as well as the software that is in the network. We also may need to secure the building itself. We may need to focus a little bit on the perimeter security. Perimeter security may still involve software, but we may also need to focus on the physical security of the building. Now that doesn't mean that focusing on the physical security of the building means that you have to focus on the technical part of it, right? That a person may actually be able to just enter the building and may be able to put up and access data through a pen drive, right? So having all sorts of software will fail, because if a person is just simply able to enter a building and gather sensitive information by through a pen drive, then all sorts of security measures that you had in the organization will fail. They are of no use, right? So all sections of security should be focused. So if I should tell you, if an organization, every organization has a network, so you have to focus on network security. Almost every organization has a website associated with them as well, so you have to focus on web app security as well. Nowadays, every organization has mobile applications as well, so you have to focus on that. Many organizations are shifting to cloud, so you need to focus on cloud security as well. So there are various branches of cybersecurity. How can we relate the theoretical concepts to our day-to-day lives? See, I gave an example to you, like getting an access to a building and be able to define what parts of the building you have access to. So getting an access to building, you need to be authenticated to be able. When you get access to the building, you need to be authorized to be able to access the resources inside the building or the rooms inside the building. Getting access to the building doesn't mean that you also have the access to the server room inside the building. You need to be authorized to be able to access the server room. So every concept of cybersecurity or network security is related to real life as well. You can directly relate to it. Any more questions? Okay, someone asked about pathway or roadmap going into network security. So I already talked about when you want to go into network security, you need to first have basic knowledge about networking, and you can also study first about Python scripting and Bash scripting. Scripting is nothing but it is as same as programming. It's just that we are using that scripting part in the way to automate our things, so that a lot of things may need to be repeated. We may need to go and automate those things. So in that scenario, rather than doing that step again and again, we will just automate that with the use of Bash or shell scripting or Python scripting. What about CS certification? Yeah, I already talked about certifications. It is not compulsory to go with, yes, but you can go with CS certification if you want to, but it's not compulsory to get a job. You want to know more about hashing algorithms? Okay. So hashing is particularly used when we talk about integrity of data or integrity of a network. So integrity of data means that suppose I send you a message, hi. So I sent you the message hi, but instead you received something else. Um, say you received a message, how are you? The message I sent you was hi, but the message you received was hi, how are you? That means that message has been compromised, and when it was being sent from my side, one second. Yeah, so when that data was being sent from my side, in between someone compromised that data and changed that message to from hi to how are you, right? So the integrity of the data was not maintained. So if we use hashing algorithms are very unique to any data or file. So if we associate a particular hash to a file using a hashing algorithm, that hash is very unique to that file. Even a single change to that file may lead to the change of that hash. Just even a single letter of the file is changed, the whole hash of that file will also change. So we will go and check the hash of the source file and the destination file. If those two files hashes match, that means that the file has not been compromised. If even a single part of the hash is changed or compromised, a single part of the file is compromised, that hash will change. So the source hash and the destination hash will not match. That means we will be able to know that the file has been compromised. So it helps us to know whether the integrity of the file is intact or not. So if we were to not implement hashing algorithm, if the file was being compromised and being changed in between, we will never be able to know. It's very hard to track, right? But if we compare the hashes that were being created through hashing algorithms, if those hashes match, that we can easily prove that the integrity of the file is still intact. If we have any other questions, please go on, or we can end the session. How is the hash communicated? Hash is not exactly communicated. What is done is when the file is at the source, uh, when I have the file with me, then I will run the hashing algorithm and a hash will be created with that file. Now, when that file will be sent to the destination, again the hashing algorithm will be run at the destination part, and then again the hash will be created for that file. Now, since we were using same hashing algorithm for the that file at the source and the file was same, then the hashing algorithm will generate the same hashes for the file. If the file was being compromised, then that same hashing algorithm will generate different hashes for that file because the file was being changed. So basically, we run the hashing algorithm at the source as well as at the destination, and both the hashes should match. We are basically not communicating the hash; we are generating hashes both at the source and the destination, and then we are comparing the hashes. Any other questions? Thank you, Diljot. If there are no other questions, then we can end the session.
Guys, I hope everyone's questions have been answered that were already in the chat. And again, if anyone has any more questions, you can ask after the session. If you have any questions, you can convey to the working team, and we will pass it on to him, and we will convey the answer back to you. Sir, as for the resources that were asked earlier,
Yeah,
uh, it would be great if you could send it to us. We would send it to all the participants on the group itself that we have for them, so everyone
yeah,
can access it apart from the participants of this session as well.
yeah, sure. So should I send it in the chat itself, or should I send it later in the group? Actually, I'm not able to hear you.
You can send it later in the group as well. That's not an issue at all.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, thank you so much, sir, for this session. It was really, really informative. And thank you to all the participants for being here. And I hope you also found this session as knowledgeable as I personally did and we all did. So again, thank you for taking out the time, sir. And I think we can end the session for today.
Thank you very much. Thank you for it.